Breaking, Venezuelan sub fires torpedo near U.S. carrier Gerald. The response shocked everyone.
At 4:22 a.m., the Caribbean Sea looks calm on the surface. No waves, no wind. But deep below, something dangerous is already moving. 260 nautical miles off the Venezuelan coast, an old diesel submarine named Submarines slips forward at low speed. Inside, 64 sailors sit in near silence as a quiet hydraulic sound spreads through the hull. The torpedo tube doors are opening. Ahead, just above the dark horizon, a massive shape dominates the water. The USS Gerald R. Ford. 100,000 tons of steel, thousands of crew, the most protected warship on the planet. This is not a training run. This is not a mistake. Instead of turning away, the Venezuelan captain orders the submarine closer. One torpedo, one chance, a direct challenge to the United States Navy. Inside the submarine, no alarms sound. Everything feels controlled. But elsewhere, far from this aging boat, screens are lighting up. Sonar returns sharpen. Distances collapse. What looks like a surprise is already being tracked. This moment is not random. It is a test. A signal sent from underwater, where no cameras can see. And the crew of the Submarines has no idea they are already being watched. If you want to follow what happens next, second by second, stay with us. What happened beneath the Caribbean is not just a close call. It is a warning about how modern naval power really works. This stretch of ocean is not random water. It is one of the most watched zones on Earth. Every major route between Venezuela and the United States runs through it. Cargo ships, energy traffic, military patrols. Sensors never sleep here. Submarines do not move unseen, especially old diesel boats running on limited power. For Venezuela, this moment carries heavy weight. The submarine involved is not just a weapon, it is a symbol. A reminder of a navy that once had reach and confidence. Today, it represents pressure, frustration, and a need to prove relevance. When options disappear on land and in the air, leaders look underwater. For the sailors inside that submarine, this is not politics, it is personal. They are operating aging equipment, trained with limited resources, pushing a system that barely works. When the captain orders the approach, they follow because that is their job. Because turning away feels like failure. On the other side, the United States sees something very different. A carrier strike group is not allowed uncertainty below the surface. Even one outdated torpedo forces attention. Not because it will succeed, but because ignoring it invites risk. This is why this encounter matters. It was not a mistake. It was a calculated test of limits, a signal meant to show defiance. But tests only work if the other side is surprised. And in this case, surprise was never part of the equation. The first reaction does not come with shouting or flashing red lights. It comes quietly, deep below the surface. Inside a United States attack submarine moving slowly beneath the carrier strike group, a sonar operator leans closer to the screen. A weak line of noise tightens into shape. Hydraulic flow. Tube flooding. The system flags it almost instantly. A calm voice cuts through the room. Possible weapon preparation. No one looks surprised. This contact has been watched for days. Its speed, depth, and pattern are already familiar. Once the acoustic signature matches, there is no doubt this is the Venezuelan submarine. Fire control wakes up in the background. Numbers begin to scroll. Angles settle. Distance locks in. Two weapons are assigned automatically, but the safeties remain on. No one rushes for permission. No one raises their voice. Above them, the USS Gerald R. Ford continues on course, unchanged. Aircraft crews sleep. Deck lights glow faintly. From the surface, nothing looks different. But below, the situation is tightening fast. Inside the Venezuelan submarine, the captain studies his own display. The target bearing stays solid. Distance drops under 15 nautical miles. He orders the tube fully flooded. Seawater rushes in. Pressure equalizes with a low metallic groan. His hand pauses over the firing control. For him, this feels like momentum, like forcing the other side to react. What he does not realize is that reaction already happened minutes ago. The American submarine is now close enough to hear pumps cycling, close enough to track propeller turns one by one. close enough that any response, if ordered, would take seconds instead of minutes. No alarm sound, no warning is sent. The silence itself becomes pressure. Every sailor on both sides understands that this is the narrow point. One wrong move here changes everything. This is not chaos. This is control. One side believes it is pushing limits. The other is deciding how far restraint should go. Right now, we want to hear from you. If you think the United States should end this immediately and remove the threat, press 1 inch the comments. If you believe holding fire sends a stronger message, press 9. Subscribe and stay with us, because the next move is already being lined up. At 4:26 a.m., the moment finally breaks. Inside the Venezuelan submarine, the captain gives the order in a steady voice. Fire! The torpedo leaves the tube with a hard mechanical push. Copper guidance wire spills out behind it as the weapon gains speed. 23 knots. Straight ahead, one target. For several seconds, nothing else happens. Inside the submarine, the crew listens. Every sound feels louder than it should. Pumps cycle. Gauges hold steady. This is the line they cannot step back from. Still, no explosion comes. No counterfire. No incoming weapons. No sudden shock through the hull. Above the water, the USS Gerald R. Ford continues on course as if nothing has changed. Escort ships maintain spacing. No flares. No alarms on deck. To anyone watching from the surface, the ocean looks calm and untouched. Below, the reality is very different. Less than 2,000 yards away, an American attack submarine shifts posture. Power flows to different systems. Sonar modes change. For the first time, active sonar comes online. One single pulse is released. The sound hits the Venezuelan submarine like a physical blow. The hull vibrates. Loose equipment rattles. Pipes shudder. Every sailor feels it instantly, not just with their ears, but in their chest and bones. There is no confusion about what this means. This is not a search. This is not a warning shot. This is exposure. In underwater combat, sound is truth. One ping gives away direction, distance, and dominance. It says one thing clearly: you are seen, you are tracked, you are inside range. The torpedo keeps running, but its importance fades with every passing second. The real threat is no longer ahead, it is behind. Inside the Venezuelan control room faces Titan. The captain does not raise his voice. He does not need to. He understands the message completely. They were never hidden. They were never ahead of the situation. They have been followed from the start. The silence that follows is heavier than any explosion. Escalation does not always mean more noise or more fire. Sometimes it means stripping away every false belief at once. And in this moment, every belief the Venezuelan crew had about control, surprise, and leverage disappears. For a brief moment, the torpedo is still running. Its motor hums steadily as it cuts through the water. Copper guidance wire stretched tight behind it. On paper, the attack is still alive. The weapon is moving. The target remains ahead. Time is still counting. But inside the Venezuelan submarine, the mood has shifted completely. The captain is no longer watching the forward display. His attention has moved to the sonar screen behind him, to a shape that should not exist, to a silence that feels wrong. The American submarine has stopped hiding. There is no second sonar pulse. There does not need to be. The first one already said everything: distance, direction, control. In that instant, the captain understands the full equation. Even if the torpedo somehow reaches its target, his submarine will not survive what follows. The range is too close. The response would be immediate, 90 seconds at most. No maneuver would save them. This is not a tactical choice anymore. It is a survival choice. At 4:38 a.m., the captain gives a new order, slower this time. Cut the wire. The copper guidance line snaps free and recoils. The torpedo loses its link to the submarine. Its course begins to drift. Without direction, it enters a basic search pattern, circling blindly through layers of warm and cold water it cannot fully process. Minutes pass in silence. The weapon turns. It listens. It finds nothing. Fuel runs low. Speed drops. The hum fades. Finally, the torpedo sinks quietly toward the seabed, becoming just another piece of metal lost beneath the Caribbean. Inside the submarine, no one speaks. No one looks relieved. The captain orders the boat to surface. Ballast tanks vent. The hull rises. The hatch opens. One by one, sailors climb onto a rusted deck and stare across open water. There are no American ships in sight, no aircraft overhead, no visible threat at all. And that absence delivers the final twist. The danger was never meant to be seen. The climax does not arrive with fire, explosions, or flashing warnings. It arrives with control. The Venezuelan submarine is now on the surface, engines idle. The deck is exposed to open air. The torpedo is gone. The attack has failed, but the danger is not over. Below the waterline, American submarines remain exactly where they were. Silent, steady, weapons still locked. No one rushes to leave. No one relaxes. Inside an American control room, a short order is passed without emotion. Maintain track. Do not escalate. Another voice answers a moment later. Tracking confirmed. Holding position. That is all that needs to be said. For the Venezuelan crew, understanding comes slowly and painfully. They were not intercepted after the launch. They were not surprised by a faster response. They were never ahead of the situation at any point. Every system they used, every turn they made, every minute they believed was hidden. All of it was already known. On the surface, the sea remains empty. No destroyers appear. No helicopters circle. No warning shots are fired. The absence of visible force becomes the most unsettling detail of all. One sailor scans the horizon and whispers, "Where are they?" No one answers him, because the answer is worse than seeing an enemy. The answer is that the United States does not need to appear to control the situation. This is the true peak of the confrontation. Not the torpedo launch, not the sonar pulse, but this moment of realization. The moment when one side understands it has reached its limit, while the other side never had to move. In modern naval warfare, victory is not always about destruction. It is about forcing the other side to stop without firing a single shot, without creating wreckage, without creating martyrs. Above the surface, the carrier strike group continues its patrol as planned. Courses remain steady. Schedules remain unchanged. To anyone watching from far away, nothing unusual has happened. But beneath the water, the message is complete. Control was never in doubt. The response was measured, and the outcome was decided long before the trigger was pulled. When the tension finally breaks, the Caribbean Sea returns to silence. The Venezuelan submarine stays on the surface for several long minutes. Engines idle. Crew members stand exposed to the open air, scanning an empty horizon. No radio challenge comes. No warning shots follow. No American ships appear. Then, slowly, the submarine turns away and begins the quiet trip back toward its coast. Below the surface, the response is just as controlled. The American submarines slip back into deeper water, reducing speed, fading from sensors that never detected them in the first place. No pursuit is ordered. No victory is announced. From the outside, it looks like nothing happened at all. But the consequences are real. For Venezuela, the cost goes far beyond a single torpedo. Fuel was burned. A mission was compromised. More importantly, an illusion was destroyed. Their last operational submarine was not invisible. It was mapped, tracked, and contained from the moment it left port. For the sailors on board, this experience will not fade. They now know what it feels like to be watched without seeing the watcher. That knowledge follows crews home. It shows up in future missions, in hesitation, in doubt, in every silent moment below the surface. For the United States, the outcome is exactly what modern deterrence is designed to achieve. No wreckage, no casualties, no international crisis, control without escalation. This is power exercised quietly, not by destroying an opponent, but by forcing them to stop on their own. By proving capability without creating martyrs or headlines. Around the world, naval planners will study this incident in private, not because a submarine was sunk, but because one was allowed to leave. The lesson is clear. The ocean no longer protects those who rely on old assumptions and outdated technology. Tonight, restraint worked. But restraint only works once. The next time a similar test happens, the response may not end this cleanly. When warnings are ignored, the math changes fast and silence is replaced by force. Before we close, we want your view. If you believe this kind of silent control is the strongest form of military power, press 1" the comments. If you think visible force should have been used to send a harder message, press 9. And if you want to keep following these moments that never make the news but shape the balance of power, subscribe now. Because the most important confrontations often end before the world even knows they began.